I might edit that out.
Because I'm not even sure it made sense.
Well, it doesn't make sense for me to be here, so I think you're good.
Okay. Hello, welcome to Hat Trick. I'm Jordan DOWLER-COLTMAN. I'm joined by Elliot Tanti, and this week, very special guest co-host replacing Braden. We have the other DOWLER-COLTMAN brother, Timothy DOWLER-COLTMAN, is here once again in the off-season. Usually we bring you in for Raptors talk because that is your chosen sport, but the Raptors are still a few weeks away from the beginning of their training camp and season. So we brought you in as a ringer here. Welcome to the show, Tim. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be back. It's quite nice to be back. I find it very funny that every time I'm around, I get thrown on this little talk show, and I don't know a lick about sports. So I appreciate you bringing me back again.
He did say just before we started recording, can we just talk about the Emmys? Because he has opinions on that, but this is not that kind of show. So we're going to talk about sports, and why waste any more time? Let's get right to it. Here we go. All right, topic one this week is the conclusion of our 3-episode series dedicated to the Oilers Off-Season. We have spent time dissecting the offense. We spent last week debating and dissecting the defense, and now we find ourselves at the all-pivotal goaltending position. You cannot win a Stanley Cup, Elliot, without good goaltending. We know that. You look at the goaltenders that have made it and taken their teams to the Stanley Cup finals in the last few years. Obviously, Vasilevsky back-to-back, but Carey Price was critical for Montreal last year, even coming off an injury. They wouldn't have been there without him. Goaltending is arguably one of the hardest positions to find consistency at in the NHL. Sometimes you have goalies who have a great year and then they fall apart the following season. Oilers fans know all too well about that. But here we are looking at the exact same two goaltenders that we started last year with. We certainly saw a rejuvenation of Mike Smith last year. He played probably his best season, I would argue, in the NHL after starting the season with an injury. He might have had a couple years in Phoenix where he was, equally as important, but because of the condensed schedule, I think he really did overachieve from what anyone's expectations were, and it was great because Koskinen completely underperformed. Thoughts on the goaltending? Where do you feel about being pretty much the same place you were a year ago?
Well, if you can't win a Stanley Cup without great goaltending, I don't think the Edmonton Oilers are going to win a Stanley Cup this year. Let me just start there. No, look, I think I'm not as critical of the goaltending situation as everyone else. I think that Holland had a really difficult situation here in the sense that Koskinen is virtually immovable. And you were going to have to give something up to get rid of him and move that contract. And then you still had to bring someone else in. And it was a little thin out there for selection of goalies this year. So coming back with the same tandem as last year, I mean, good, not great, okay, not good. I don't know. It sort of is what it is. What I will say is, and this is going to be really controversial point, the Edmonton Oilers goaltending quality will be about as good as this year as it was last year. And really strong statement. But what I mean to say is that I think we can expect Mike Smith to be not as good as he was last year because he, as you mentioned, he was sensational. But I actually think Mikko Koskinen will have a bounce back year. And he's a better goalie than he was last year. He ran into issues where they were falling behind early in games. There was a string where he had 7 or 8 games last year, Jordan, where the first shot he let in, just kind of weird stuff like that just really dogged him and I think led people to have a lower view of him than he was. Would I have liked to have seen something better? Absolutely. But I just don't know that there was much to do out there. And so Smith coming back, Koskinen coming back on the final year of his contract, it's okay.
Yeah, I think for the second year in a row, Holland sort of took a couple swings and missed with what options there were. There obviously going into last year, the big prize was Markstrom leaving Vancouver. He ended up in Calgary, and we know that Holland targeted him and he wasn't able to close that deal. So they went with what they had. Mikko Koskinen, I think, it exacerbates his failures because of the price tag. He's making 4.5 a year now. He's only on his last year of his deal here. That's what you were mentioning. He's sort of, that's the ball and chain connecting you to him. They do have to think about what's best for the team, and we're going to know really quickly as they go into training camp whether or not, as you suggest, Koskinen is going to have a bounce back, or if they feel he's sort of the same place he was. The third wheel to this tandem is Alex Stellock, who they signed. He's on a 1-year deal for only $785,000. So he's a much better price tag at the NHL level if, let's say, he finds a way to be number 2 behind Mike Smith and you bury Koskinen in the minors. At least some of that cap space is available for things like trades at the deadline or anything like that. They signed Yamamoto this week to a very good 1-year deal. Price tag wise, I should say 1-year deal. Not great for Yamamoto, but one of those let's set up, show me what you have, kind of bet on yourself deals, which I think both for the Oilers and for Yamamoto is really important. I mean, Mikko Koskinen can't be much worse than what we've seen from him at his worst. He can't, he could do nothing but improve on sort of where he was last year. Tim, I know you're not a huge goaltending expert, but thoughts on the Edmonton Oilers goaltending situation?
Goalies got to be goalies. Goalies got to stop the pucks, and if they're not stopping the pucks, you got to pull them. I think that's basic truth. So
that's what you got for us. That's great. Very true. I think
Hot take.
You should pop that in the suggestion box for Dave Tippett. If the goalie's not stopping the puck, you got to pull him. Nothing wrong with that. Elliot, let's just really quickly do this here.
So,
can you? What's the last Edmonton goaltender you remember the name of?
Rolison.
Oh, there you go.
Great
okay.
name.
Dwayne Rolison. How about before that? Anything else other than maybe
Cujo?
Yeah.
Tommy Salo?
No, there's Tommy Salo.
Tommy Salo?
Yeah,
that's
he was an underwear model, and I think now convicted of drunk driving.
Oh, that's a shame.
No, that's Nikolai Habibulin.
Also an Oiler goaltender.
I mean,
so here's my last question. Everyone out here in Vancouver always jokes about how Vancouver is a goalie graveyard, right?
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of goaltenders come in here and their careers have just fallen off cliffs. I mean, it's what it is. Now, you could argue, I think it's fair to argue, Roberto Luongo's best years were still in Vancouver. No one can deny that, right? Like, he had good years in Florida.
They made him the captain. They did
make him the captain one year.
They made the goalie the captain.
Yeah, it didn't work out well.
It was a disaster.
But he did win a gold medal for Team Canada here. He was at the top of his game from what it was going to be. The question is this: has Edmonton also become a goalie graveyard, Elliot?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I don't think that we've just had good enough goalies to careers to kill. I mean, I think that this has been a major weakness in the organization since, Tommy Salo and Cujo and, Rolison and in the 06 run. We've really struggled to sort of like develop and grow and maintain a solid goaltending back. Devin Dubinick is the weird one, right? Devin Dubinick was the one who was, looked like a borderline NHL player here and then went to a team with an actual defense and was outstanding. Yeah. Lots of people have finished their careers here. There's always been this sort of stopgap in Edmonton. What I like about where we're at right now is it's a similar place to our defense, is that there's a pretty strong collection of goaltenders in the system that are young, but they take time to develop. Goalies usually kind of hit their prime in their late 20s, early 30s, unless you're like a sensation like Carey Price. And there seems to be like a healthy sort of stable of young goaltenders coming into the organization. But I wouldn't compare it to the Vancouver model. I would just say that there's not been enough investment in it. And the assets that we have acquired in terms of young players have just not panned out.
All right. Well, I guess what we will wait and see is, as we get closer and closer to training camp, what condition do Mike Smith, the ageless wonder, and Mikko Koskinen, we'll see what condition they both come into camp, and whether or not we have another kind of tandem thing going on here, or if we're going to go back to Mike Smith as the starter right out of the gate. We'll wait and see. It's a longer season. That could play a factor in Mike Smith as far as conditioning. Obviously, you can't have him playing more than like 65 games, I would say. Mikko Koskinen's got to come in and play 20 games and win at least half of them for the Oilers to really be able to succeed, I would argue. He's definitely got to stop more of the first shots. Let's start there and see where we can go from. All right, that was topic one.
The Ordinary Podcasting Network is excited to announce that we have launched a merch store on our website. The store is full of ordinary swag, including t-shirts, hoodies, and hats. You can pick out something awesome and support your favorite podcast today by heading over to ordinarypodcasts.com.
Okay, we're going to wade into a little bit of controversy. I don't think it's really controversial, but other people seem to want to make it controversial, and it's become such a hot button politically, but I think it's important to just have a conversation briefly about it. We spent a lot of time last season talking about how devastating COVID was for a team like the Canucks. However, we are also now looking at every Canadian team, I believe, has announced they will mandate fans be showing proof of vaccination to be in the stadium. The question we wanted to ask today is it time for the leagues to also stop dragging their feet and mandate vaccines for their players? Not just for the obvious safety reasons, but also because it is becoming more and more evident that not doing so is causing a whole bunch of additional headaches. COVID shutdowns, we've seen that with the CFL. The Edmonton Elks lost, I guess, a week to now reschedule due to like an outbreak of 18 or something players.
Well, there was one guy,
like wildfire.
Actually, there's one guy who just lied about being vaccinated, and that caused the problem.
Right, and he was released from the team because it wasn't that he was mandated to get vaccinated. It was more mandated that he lied about what his status was, which is unbelievable. If you're going to not be vaccinated and you're not going to own that, I'm not sure what's going on. But the question today is this. Is it time for leagues, the NFL, the NHL, when the NBA comes back, is it time to just pull the trigger and mandate that players be vaccinated for the health and safety of the majority of the players in the league? Is it not? Should we not be holding the players on the ice to the same standard we're holding, or on the field to the same standard we're holding the fans in the stands to? Elliot, we'll go to you first. I think I know what your answer is going to be, but do you want to dig in on this one?
Well, frankly, Jordan, vaccines are unconstitutional. And let me just start by saying that. I obviously don't agree with that that previous statement, and I think vaccines are the best thing, both from a public health response, but also just for everyone in general. A couple things. I mean, so let's take. I want to talk about this angle. The people that play these sports, these athletes, are role models. They're role models to kids. They're role models to adults. They're oftentimes really influential individuals in people's lives. These athletes buy a product, and other people will buy that product to be like them. They have an opinion, and people will formulate an opinion that matches them as well too. These people are role models, and I think that there's an obligation, if you're a role model and you get the publicity that you do, to be informed on issues and act in a way that's appropriate and in the best interest of humanity and safety. And so I think that there's an obligation for athletes to take the vaccine. And what's disappointing is that not everyone has done that. And so now we're in a conversation of whether you mandate it or not. And I think you should. I think they should. I think, there's lots of workplaces. It's becoming kind of a standard thing that people are, you need to be vaccinated in order to come into work or and do your job. I mean, this is a close contact sport. People are right on top of each other. They're sweating. There's breathing hard. There's droplets being, spit out all over the place. And so those are circumstances that are ripe for COVID transmission. And so because of that, I think that it's an occupational health and safety conversation in question, and there's an obligation for the employees, that being the athletes and the coaches, to get vaccinated for the health and safety of everyone.
Right.
Tim, where do you come down on this?
Well, I wish I could disagree with both of you. We'd have a much better argument on this matter, but no, I have to agree with you entirely. And I think I'll just couple in on what Elliot's saying about the influential nature of these athletes. And I think that it's absolutely important for this implementation to happen so that everyone can get on with everything, because I think there's a lot of money on the line as well, moving these players back into the stadiums, getting all of the necessities back to running smoothly. That if this measure is not taken into account, then it's just going to be a clusterfuck for a long time. So I don't know if I can swear on your podcast.
You can swear. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I agree with both of you with the majority of everything you said. I think I think it gets tricky when the reason becomes that these athletes are role models, because we've also seen many athletes behave in ways that we are personally may not agree with and think about, and we've often seen the leagues be able to find ways to somehow justify that for the purposes of the fact that they're making millions of dollars off of the backs of these athletes. I think that's part of the struggle that some of these leagues have, is that they want to accommodate the athletes' personal decisions and whatever else. I think we get into a bit of an interesting ethical conversation about, like, and we've had this in general, but I think every workplace is struggling and working through this thing about, there is an expectation to some degree in our society about allowing people to have some form of privacy concerning their health. And their health decisions and those things in many different circumstances. I think, though, that like so many other things that have shifted and changed during this pandemic, the recognition is we are in exceptional circumstances, and that sometimes during exceptional circumstances, exceptional sort of measures are required. And we've learned that in so many other workforces, as Elliot points out. For God's sake, the propaganda machine fighting against the COVID vaccine in the United States, being Fox News, literally has a vaccine mandate for their employees coming into Fox's headquarters. It's a fucking joke. But when it comes back to this part of it, I think the double standard part is what I'm struggling with. If the fans have to be coming into this facility, why then aren't the players being held to the same standard? You can look at it from the economics part of it. Yep, this would make it so much easier for the league to be able to keep their operations running and all of those things, because they're limiting the risk again. Doesn't mean that you may still not have breakthrough cases. We've seen that it happens, but we had so few cases even in last year with just the testing that we could be completely removing that for some of these organizations. But the other thing is, there is already a precedent here. There are rules about you can't be going back on the ice with blood on your jersey. You can't go back on the court with blood on your jersey. That player's removed from the game to try to prevent any kind of transmissible disease. Here we have an incredibly, like Elliot said, an incredibly transmissible disease that we have a very simple solution to. And I think it's just asinine that these leagues aren't taking the simplest step of mandating.
And especially, we saw it with the NBA last year, where there were a few teams that got so close and a few players that had to be pulled because of COVID precautions or whatever, and it ended up costing some of these teams the potential of going to the playoffs, or in some cases even taking home a win. So I think it's not only for the leagues as a whole, but it just benefits each team as a collective as well.
So if you don't mandate it, Elliot, what should the punishments be for these teams?
Well, so this is the thing that we're dealing with, and we're seeing, like, there's very strict rules around what players who are not vaccinated can do, particularly when they are out of town or traveling, right? So there's some really strict requirements around not leaving the hotel room. You can't compete. You can't go out for dinner. You can't do anything that doesn't involve your team, basically. And there's some really strict rules around that. And I think, this is sort of the approach that lots of employers have taken, that in which, if you don't feel like you have the authority or capacity to do a vaccine mandate, what you do is you just make it so uncomfortable for people to work that you go and get their vaccine, right? And so I'm interested to sort of see if the requirements and expectations of those unvaccinated folks, not being able to engage in some team outings and events and things like that, not being able to your hotel room, will impact people to get the vaccine. To your question, what should be done is that there should be strict and severe punishment if people break the rules around this stuff, particularly if they're unvaccinated. I mean, that gentleman that we talked about from the Elks this year, not only was he released from the team, but there was a mandate across the entire league that no other team could pick him up, and he lost his ability to work. I don't think the NHL is going to go that far. Teams aren't going to be releasing players. But significant suspensions that hurt your team, should be in place and enforced, because I mean, this is still, whatever your personal feelings are on vaccines, this is still, as you said, the health and safety of everyone around you, the people at the games, your management. I mean, coaches are not young. There's a lot of referees aren't necessarily young, although they are getting younger now. You're as you said, you're a danger to the people around you. And so you have to be the expectations, you have to be cautious, and the rules are the rules, right?
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll leave it there. Hey, guess what? The Ordinary Podcasting Network has a brand new show. If you're a fan of Hat Trick Sports, then I promise you are going to enjoy the Backyard Basketball Podcast. DOWLER-COLTMAN, who is one of the hosts of this show here, Hat Trick, hosts an amazing basketball show with one of his best friends, Christian Steck. Together, the two of them will break down the NBA, news from around the basketball world, and get you caught up on everything you need to know. It's fun, it's fast, they have great conversation and banter, they love basketball, and you will love the Backyard Basketball Podcast. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, and you can also follow them on Instagram at backyardbasketball_podcast. Okay, topic 3. We're going to have a little bit of fun because Tim is here and Tim is hungry. We're going to talk about something sort of, I don't know, this is just kind of a fun topic. We've done this a couple of times, but here it is. Fans are coming back to the stands. We've seen, the capacity start to increase as the vaccine passport systems have been implemented in certain cities. We've talked about that just in the last topic about every Canadian NHL team is going to mandate fans proof of a vaccination. Many provinces are doing it just in general, obviously, because they're recognizing that it's critical. And so what's great about it, though, is we're going to start seeing fans in stands, and maybe we ourselves will start to attend sporting events. And one of the great things about sporting events is paying for overpriced food at the concession. And this is something that most fans haven't been able to do for a couple years. Who doesn't love going and buying like a $17 piece of pizza or a $25 burger?
Or a hot dog the size of your forearm.
Exactly. So what we wanted to dig into really quickly here is we're gonna list
the
some
forearm dog.
Yeah, there you go. We're gonna list some of our favorite stadium snacks, and then we'll do like a round of that. And then what I've also offered up is I want to see if you can come up with a better thing you've never either seen or you want to see in one of these stadiums, right? So you get to make the menu. So we'll do basically we'll do it in actually, let's do it in threes. So, because it's hat trick, we'll do your favorite thing you've seen or had, the one thing you've seen but never had, like something you've heard about at another ballpark or another stadium or something. And then number 3, what's your like wish list item? That work?
All right.
All right, we'll do it in like a little round. So I'll go first. The best like stadium snack food item I've ever had is at what is now called Remax Field. Used to be what was it, Telus Field for the longest time, home to the Trappers, and then later home to the Cracker Cats, and then later home to the Edmonton Capitals. I think now the Prospects.
Terrible mascot.
Yeah, exactly.
Capitals.
But they had really good food, like impressively good food for like a tiny little minor league ballpark, and they had a pierogi hot dog.
Oh yeah.
So it was the hot dog with some shaved like cactus fries. So it was like the potato, lots of smothered in cheese,
sour cream,
a little bit of sour cream,
bacon bits,
and it had a kick, and it was like a little spicy.
chives.
That thing though was like, it was unreal, and it was like $8, but it was so good. So for me, my like favorite of all time is the pierogi hot dog at Telus Field.
That's a good
Tim,
one.
what's your
Oh my
favorite
God.
of all time?
That's a really good one.
Arena snack.
Well, actually, it's I don't know if every baseball diamond does this. I think the New York Yankees do this. I'm pretty sure that Seattle does this as well. And if the Blue Jays don't, then the Blue Jays need to start doing this. And it's the ice cream in the cup that looks like a small little baseball cap. It's the cutest little thing. I don't know, the little batter helmet, right?
Yes.
You get your ice cream, and then your little sundae, and then
And
afterwards
you
you
go home
put
with a tiny
a
little cap. There you
Yeah,
go.
it's fun and silly and overpriced for sure. What, you're paying for the little cap?
Right. Elliot, favorite
favorite
stadium snack.
Yeah, I'm going to go in a total different direction. It's been well documented on this show, and I talked about it a lot, but I was an avid Elks season ticket holder from the ages of like 9 to 16. It's something I would do with my grandfather. And when we'd go to every game, he would buy me a foot-long hot dog.
Right.
And it was like a tradition every year, every game. That was the first thing. He'd go and he'd grab a coffee, and I'd grab foot-long hot dog, and then he'd bring snacks and stuff, and we'd have chocolate bars and things like that. But that foot-long hot dog was sort of like the special thing. And And there's nothing special about it. It's a foot-long hot dog at Commonwealth Stadium. Like, it's just like overpriced and long. And I was a kid, so I just wanted to get right to the seats. So I wouldn't even put like mustard or mayo or mustard or ketchup on it. It was just like a plain foot-long hot dog. That was my thing. And yeah, like it was just like so basic and boring. But I have this like real nostalgia around like going to games and watching the then now Elks with my grandfather and him buying this for me too. So that would be my thing that when I think of like the snack that my favorite snack is, that'd always be that for me.
That's nice. So the second thing I said was, what's the like snack or something you've heard of in a different ballpark, or not ballpark? I don't know why we always go to ballparks, but it's kind of like, it's like the iconic thing.
The ballparks do have the best food.
You sit and like have a snack, right? Mm-hmm. But it was like, what is the one thing you've never, I don't know, that you've had or whatever, or heard of that you've never had a chance to eat?
I've never had tacos, and I think tacos would go really great with any game. Just a couple small 3 to 4 tacos in a little tray.
That sounds really good.
Hey, maybe you could make it into like a goalie net. Going on this.
That's fun. You're really about the little
souvenirs.
That's right. You want a snack and a treat to take home.
That's right. Well, I love Kinder snack.
I love it. This has just made me think of the most atrocious thing I've ever seen. That should have been a category.
That should have been a category. Yeah.
My wife and I went to Miami once, and we went to a Dolphins preseason game because I'd never been to an NFL game at the time, and it was like, this will kind of be fun. We sat very high up at, I guess it's now Hard Rock Stadium, I think, and it used to be Sun Life or something. Dolphin Stadium, whatever it is now. And we sat up in the nosebleeds watching a Dallas Cowboy Miami Dolphin preseason game that we just got cheap tickets for. And she was gone for like maybe the entire second quarter to get food because she just wanted to go and see like every available option. And what she came back with was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. It was a foot-long hot dog with about 4 pounds of chili on top. Ooh. It was actually like not physically edible. There was no possible way to eat a hot dog with that much chili on it. It's almost like you had like a barrel of chili and then a hot dog hidden in it. Nice. It was horrifying. And watching her try to eat it, I will never get that out of my head because it's like, honestly, like it was not physically possible for a human being to consume that without either just like eating it like a pig in a trough or what. And the best part was there's this guy sitting behind us who's just laughing the entire time. Anyway, my wife would be very embarrassed I told that story, but it's very funny. I think she brought me like a hot dog with some ketchup on it, but she attempted this thing. Anyway, my go-to one I've never had, but I've always wanted to. So you guys talked about, I do love a hot dog at a sporting event because you don't eat a hot dog very other places, maybe off of like a street cart in New York or something. Yeah. Right. But like a hot dog at a ball game or a hot dog at a football game is just, there's something that goes, it's easy, it's handheld, right? Perfectly designed. You got the beer in one hand, the hot dog in the other. I don't know, you might need two hands though. At Dodger Stadium, which I actually have been to, but I don't know why I didn't do this at the time. But they have what they call the going yard dog.
That's what I'm talking about. Forearm.
It's the home run. Yeah. This thing is 16.8 inches.
Oh God.
So it's longer than a foot. Can you imagine?
2 hands. That's a 2-hand.
That's
hot
right.
Dog.
That's right. You got to share that one.
Wow.
So I think that one's pretty good. Anyway. Elliot, do you have one from somewhere else you've never tried?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like famous, but the Philly cheesesteak at like the Philly ballpark apparently is amazing. And I've actually, like, one of my goals is to go to Philadelphia, and it's really for no other reason but to eat Philly cheesesteak. But yeah, I'd love a Philly cheesesteak sandwich at a Phillies game. That would be great.
All right. What's the thing you have never seen but wish you had? So you kind of said nachos, which I know exist, but is there anything else that's like, what's your like?
The nachos. Oh, well, no nachos exist. I was thinking of a pickle, You
like
see those at the
pickle?
Well, not a deep fried. I think that's going too far. Just a pickle on a stick. You see them.
Okay.
Yeah, I see them sometimes at the fairs and stuff, and I think people would love it. It would go really well. Pickle on a stick.
like a sweet, like a
dill pickle.
like a sweet dill. Okay.
Like a big old dill pickle. You call it pickle by the foot, and you.
Oh my god, a foot long
A
pickle.
foot long pickle. Yeah. Put it on a little skewer.
What are you doing? You're sitting at the 50-yard line eating a pickle on a stick?
Yeah, for sure. It's a good crunch.
And is it
to
vertical or is it perpendicular to the stick?
I think it's vertical. I think.
What's your job? Well, I got all these foot long cucumbers I got to pickle for next year's season, so that's why.
And then stick them on a popsicle stick.
That's right.
No, you got to stick the stick in like when it's ready to go, but you have like a spatula that you'd like stick in, and that was what you were most. And then that'd be your takeaway. That'd be your takeaway, Tim, is that you get the spatula to come home with, and that was your pickle spatula.
Oh, yes.
That's a great
Make
idea.
it sports related. It could be a hockey stick.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go.
All right, Elliot, what do you got?
I'm hard pressed to I sort of think this probably exists, but I would think like in Canada, why aren't we doing donaires at games?
Oh,
like it's a perfect one-handed thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's like super easy to hang on to, relatively quick to make, sort of like a cultural phenomenon related to, Canada in general. Like, why don't we get donaires at hockey games?
Definitely.
I don't know.
That's a really good one.
Definitely.
I was going to go with something much more like trivial and silly. When you go to Disneyland, you can get a turkey leg.
What?
Right? You know the turkey leg? It's like a full, like the drumstick. So, but I want it as a hot wing. Because I love hot wings at like a sports bar, but hot wings at like a game would be really hard because it's messy. But if you had one really big hot wing, it was just like a drumstick.
Bat.
Yeah, exactly. And then
I love that idea.
At the, you eat that or whatever.
Yes.
It's a big hot wing flavored drumstick.
You got your drumstick,
And then you have a massive
pickle in the other.
You have a massive bowl of ranch that you have to dip it in.
That's
as
perfect.
You go.
That's perfect. And then to make sure I check all the boxes for Tim, you get to take the chicken leg home at the end of the night. The bone is perfect.
That's right.
All right. Well, we're all now sitting here feeling very gluttonous, but in short order, we'll all be back at stadiums watching hockey games and eating things and dreaming of even better options. So, and all you Oiler fans, when you get back to Rogers Arena, make sure you order a nice big slice of Pizza 73 because for some reason it tastes so much better at the stadium than it does when you order it at home. And it's also like 4 times the size. Unbelievable. Love that.
Can I just give an honorable mention to the beer at the old Rexall place, like that crack beer, whatever they used to call it? Like that beer was something special. That at Coliseum, it's not the same now at the new arena, but that old Coliseum, there was something in the lines there that
nice.
the old Rexall beers. You can't forget about those.
Nice.
I gotta also maybe get a shout out for a good long churro.
Oh yeah.
That's
always good. It's nice and handheld. It always comes down to it's got to be convenient, right?
Absolutely.
Like you can't. That's the problem with the chili dog. You have to be able to eat it in your seat.
Unless it comes with a spoon, it's not worth it.
I'm just so looking forward to like the Busy Bee vegan ad before this segment.
Okay, this was a really fun show. I'm really glad Tim was able to join us.
Thanks for having me.
And if there's any general managers of local arenas out there who are looking for some ideas concerning their concessions, hit Tim up. He's got lots of good ideas. They always come with a toy to take home, like a Happy Meal.
Got to.
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. Quick shout out here to our listeners. Thank you so much for all your support. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And hey, if you haven't done it already, head over to theordinarypodcasting.com. You can check out our merch store. We've got some awesome new stuff in there for the Hat Trick listeners. And we'll be back next week with even more fun stuff for you. That was Hat Trick. Hat Trick is a member of the Ordinary Podcasting Network. It's produced every week by Jordan Dowler-Coltman and Braden Dowler-Coltman. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.
The Ordinary Podcasting Network wishes to acknowledge that the lands on which our conversations take place include Treaty 6 territory, the traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous peoples, including the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, and the Nakota Sioux peoples, as well as the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.
We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for generations. And we extend our appreciation for the opportunity to live, create, and share stories on these territories.
The Ordinary Podcasting Network intends to engage in conversations and dialogue which acknowledge that reconciliation is not a destination, but a journey, and that we remain committed to practicing our craft in a decolonized space.